Well, welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. Uh, Pins and needles last night. I think the whole world was about Fancy Nancy going to Taiwan. Your thoughts?
Well, there's rumors now that she never intended to go to Taiwan. This was something that was possibly going to happen, and it only became real when Biden put his foot in his mouth and made it public that this was being planned. Usually they don't make these travel arrangements public, but Biden once again stuck his foot in his mouth, backed us into a corner, and we really had to have her go. And fortunately, Taiwan welcomed her with open arms. The Chinese are doing military exercises in Taiwanese territory, and the Taiwan military has been flying sorties to chase Chinese fighter planes out of their borders. All of this because Biden doesn't know enough to keep his mouth shut.
No question about it. To go back in history, Newt Gingrich did it in 97, 98, the way it should have been done. A little protest, verbal protest by the Chinese. In the end, absolutely nothing happened.
Even more importantly, though, Congress people have gone this year to Taiwan and had no problems, nothing, because Biden didn't know about it or was able to keep his mouth shut.
He created the conflict. He backed both parties. He both backed the United States and China into corners. But why I bring up Newt Gingrich, because he was the Speaker of the House in 97, 98, and he went the way it should have gone. It was not pre-disclosed, a little bit of bravado on the Chinese side, but in the end, it was a tempest in a teapot, and actually nothing happened.
And hopefully this will go the same way. The military exercises will end and everybody will go back to their neutral corners and go back to bickering.
Yeah, I think it had an effect. I think it humiliated in an Asian culture. Humiliation is one of the it's something to be avoided, to say the least.
Yes.
And I think that we humiliated communist China leadership. What's going to happen, no one really knows, but it will have some effect. And it was all also about Fancy Nancy's ego. She didn't bring anyone out, didn't make it bipartisan, because it's always about Fancy Nancy.
Well, how does that surprise you?
It does not at all.
It's Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, it's Nancy Pelosi's world. We're just living in it.
There you go. And so is her husband, Paulie P., who had his court date today. He was not in court, but his lawyer was. Kind of interesting because there is a lot of, obviously, liberal bias, because even watching more conservative outlets like Fox, initially, it was reported that Paulie P. had a couple too many Chardonnays at the vineyards and crashed into a fence. So I'm like, yeah, okay, DUI, got it. And then the real story is, first of all, there's indications he might have been on something else. And my point is alcohol and some drugs, whatever they were, either prescription or not. And he totaled, both cars were totaled, plus the person he hit has some injuries. That's not misdemeanor DUI, that's felony DUI. He will not get that, obviously.
No, and at the scene, he handed the police some benevolence card or something, like it was a get out of jail free card.
Yes, he did that, yes.
And we will see what happens. But, again, they don't play by the same rules. Do as I say, not as I do.
Without any question. There has been reports that it's been a good week for, besides and that's a big besides, the Taiwanese / communist China incident, for um, for Biden. He had his Build Back Better. Now it's called the Inflation Relief Bill. Figure that one. And he had his second COVID outbreak. And there has been actually speculation saying that maybe it was so close together that it was maybe he did so well under the first confinement that they put him in for another week just to kind of chill things out, get things kind of going in the right direction. Because when he's out of the picture, he actually does better. He did have, I said, pass the legislation, and overall a good week for him after he announced to the world that he had cancer in Massachusetts.
Well, yes, I mean, for Biden and, in fairness, the Democratic Party, they did have a good week. Let's not forget about taking out al-Zawahiri in Afghanistan.
Yeah, that's part of his good week, no question.
That's part of his good week. Of course, let's see if it stays good. Because now, with al-Zawahiri, you've got people saying, well, if Afghanistan wasn't a safe haven, would he have been out and about and so easy to get?
Oh, he was living in luxury. You should have it so well. Not living in a cave, my friends.
There's also the fact that when Trump did the exact same thing to terrorist leaders, Biden went off saying it was irresponsible and he should never have gone into a sovereign country. And now he's just done the exact same thing. But for him, it's okay.
Oh, and there's also the issue of that the CIA had this thing, it was dialed in for a while. I believe the COVID, I don't know if it was by chance or by orchestration, and this hit was, and obviously the legislation going through, he needed a good week. And that's indicated by also the complete lack of any Democratic support of him running for a second term. Gary Nadler in New York is now going to have to primary someone, but they asked him directly, which had done others. The congressperson who's got a tough fight in Ohio, same thing, asked him. And they're like, well, yeah, I went to the Jurassic Park movie. It was fantastic. Anything but answering the question. So that's a really good point. How do you think it actually, well, I'll let you talk first. Sorry. Go ahead.
He's got no support, but all of this, they're touting that it's a good week. And it's one of those things that we really have to wait and see if it's good. Because yes, the Inflation Reduction Act, Schumer and Manchin came to an agreement. However, it has not passed anything. Kyrsten Sinema has not said she's going to support this. And so far, the bipartisan Joint Committee on Taxation and the nonpartisan taxation model at Penn Wharton have both said, not only is this going to do nothing for inflation, it's actually going to raise taxes on everybody except for some reason people making between $10,000 and $30,000 a year. If you make less than $10,000, you're going to be paying more. If you pay more than $30,000, you're going to be paying more taxes. And these are independent bodies.
More liberal leaning, by the way, too.
Yes, they are. They do tend to traditionally be more liberal leaning, but they have both said, no, what the Democrats are saying is completely wrong. And of course, the administration is going, well, they don't have all of the information. Well, that's always their excuse. But guess what? This happens time after time. And I honestly think if it does come out that taxes will be raised, I think Sinema will shoot it down.
Well, here's an interesting point. Newt Gingrich, I think he's a brilliant person. Sometimes he rubs people the wrong way. I think he knows the way of government. Talked about the protocols in the Senate that Republican leadership, McConnell among others, can delay this. They can't stop it, but procedurally delay it and give time for these other senators, Democratic senators, to go to their constituency and hear it firsthand, especially those in tight races, and others may break off. So it's not completely a done deal. Am I not correct in that?
No, it is not a done deal. And I think
But that's
if
strategy I'm talking
if
about.
if Joe Manchin has to go back to West
Oh,
Virginia and face his constituents over this, CNBC ran a report about what industries are going to be hit hardest with
coal,
this tax, and coal is number one.
basically
So
the lifeblood of West Virginia.
yes, so Manchin's going to have a hard time pushing this back home.
Well, could he actually flip flop on this, or is it just too far gone?
Oh no, he can easily change his mind. They can change their minds right up to the point when they have to vote on it.
Because I know we gave him a Carnivore Radio, our first award, which we abruptly took back. But the more I saw of him over the last week, the more I've come to realize he's just another political hack shithead. I mean, he rebranded it the Stars and Stripes bill. I mean, how dumb do you think we are, you moron? Because I never thought he was particularly bright to begin with. I thought he had courage, but he caved like a cheap parish, whatever.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate. And he sold out his own constituency, which I do not understand how he could do that. But yeah, the bill has nothing to do with saving people from inflation. It's going to do nothing to lower inflation, uh, and it's going to raise taxes.
As
So,
he was, I think, had a degree of stature. I think that's completely gone after his performance, especially going on every network, not really answering the question. He, again, also didn't endorse Biden, but I don't see how that, what to put in perspective for our listeners, Trump won West Virginia by like 30 points. This is not New York.
exactly. Now, I'm going to toss this out because you mentioned earlier that there were procedural ways that the vote could be pushed back.
Yes, delayed. Yep.
Is it possible that Manchin actually agreed to this, fully expecting it to be pushed far enough into the future that the Democrats will no longer be able to pass it, just so he could shut the Democratic Party up?
I think he had too much skin in the game. Good thought, but it possibly. But there's other cinema is not a done deal, and also there's I forgot his name. He's running against Vance in Ohio. A very tough race.
Yeah,
He always
there are
plays.
there are 5 Democratic senators who are involved in very tight races in either red or purple states. And we'll have to see if they want to throw their career away over this.
Well, speaking of the Senate, Nate Silver gives the Democrats a 55% chance of keeping the Senate. Your thoughts?
Um, I don't think they have a 55% chance. At this point, I will give it a 50-50 toss up. But I don't think it's 55%. Senate is always tough because it is a statewide race, but we'll have to see what happens. I mean, we're already seeing in primaries things happening that nobody expected. Not the least of which was actually yesterday's election in Kansas, where red state Kansas voted against a constitutional amendment for the state constitution banning abortion, which,
Yes.
the Democrats have been, oh, they're all going to ban abortion. They're all going to ban abortion. Guess what? We just saw red state residents are not that quick to ban abortion. If things like that happen more and more, abortion is the issue most of them are running on. If the wind is taken out of that sail, I think the pendulum switches back.
And let me also interject something. President Obama, when he said never underestimate the ability for Biden to screw things up. I think he said F things up.
Yes, he said F things up.
Plenty of time for Scranton Joe to F things up, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
3 months for him to
that's the other reason I have problems with these guys going, oh, well, there's a 55% chance of this, 50%, whatever. There's still states that have primaries going on. We don't even know who's going to be on all the tickets yet, so you can't really predict.
No, I think they're talking about like Herschel Walker, Vance in Ohio against what is Riley or whatever. Those kind of bellwether. And then there's Oz in Pennsylvania. He's not looking too good. But we shall see. There's also the thing about some of these MAGA endorsements in the generals. If there's predictions of them getting smoked. If they do get smoked, I think that's another kink in Mr. Trump's armor. Do you agree?
If the Trump endorsed nominees lose their general elections, that's pretty much it for Donald Trump.
Thank you, Dr. Lockton. I would say it's that dramatic. Yes. Goodbye.
It really is. At that point, I don't think he may still decide to run, but I don't think there's any way he can win a primary if his endorsed candidates this year don't take their races.
No question about it. But speaking of races, there's a call. I don't know who's doing that. It might be mental hospitals or something. But there's even people. I'm kidding. There's even people in the in the political sphere, both in media and in politics itself, who are calling for AOC to put her hat or her dress in the ring and run for president in 2024. Although, and you've mentioned this, Dr. Lockton, she's among the least effective. She loves playing the role. Like if it was a Hollywood movie, she might get an Oscar of playing a congressperson. Maybe Tommy Goes to Congress or something is the name of the flick. But anyway, she's among the least effective and the actual least effective, dead last in her home state of New York. And we can recall the Amazon debacle to put fuel on that fire. Your thoughts?
Yeah, there have been a number of Democratic strategists who are saying AOC should, and media pundits, yes, that are saying AOC should win. These people are all misunderstanding how elections work. In a primary, whoever can draw out the party base, they will win the primary. AOC can do that. She has a strong following with the far left Democratic base. But when you get to the general, it's not the party base that wins elections, it's independents and swing voters of either party near the center. AOC has zero support with any of those constituencies. She would absolutely get demolished because independents are not going to support her. Certainly no Republican is going to support her.
The funny thing about it is I agree with you 100%, but the Democratic bench is so weak. She's polling in the middle. She's ahead of Hillary and nipping at the heels of Mayor Pete. So it shows how the Democratic bench is just awful.
If you take a look at who they list, if Biden doesn't run, who can run for president in 2024? It's all far left candidates. The Democrats believe they need to double down on the woke liberal agenda that has crippled the party. And they don't seem to understand that they are out of touch with the majority of Americans. There's a reason the DNC pushed Joe Biden. And if you remember the campaign, he campaigned as a centrist. Obviously, it was a lie, but during the campaign, he kept saying he was going to bring everybody together, he was going to go to the center, and that was what people voted for. Now, one of the reasons he has such low approval ratings among independents is that he lied to us. He lied to the independent voter. So people that voted for him believing they were going to get a centrist and got this, they're not going to fall for that from an AOC or a Gavin Newsom. They know better.
Well, they also thought they were getting someone that could complete a sixth grade crossword puzzle.
Yeah.
There you go. We all had to overcome obstacles. Dr. Lotkin, you've had to overcome your own obstacles. Every person in this world has to. And, it's amazing how everyone's a victim now. The new SI, Sports Illustrated cover bikini model. Just brace yourself, Dr. Lotkin. Hope you're sitting down. Had overcome, and it is traumatic that she posed with a C-section. And I'm putting her poster. I'm going to take the cover of SI and put it right next to the two pictures of Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King, because that is inner strength and courage, right up there with Winston Churchill.
It really is sad what constitutes, she was victimized because she had a C-section. And if she hadn't appeared on the magazine, who would really care? This is not something that people should even be considering. But it's like, it was so difficult for her.
Can
really?
I interject? How about the 60 million, and I don't know the exact figures, of other women that go about their day, and then their list of problems, like, in other words, feeding the family, keeping a marriage together, their C-sections probably maybe 30th?
If that. I
there
mean,
you go.
Most women I know that have had C-sections don't even think about it.
Yeah.
It's they know, but I mean, it doesn't matter to them. And the fact of the matter is, it's like, what about all of the disabled women? Okay, none of them have appeared on the cover of SI.
But isn't it always in today's world, you can have this, she's a beautiful woman, but that's not good enough, because in the woke culture, there always has to be an underlying problem.
Yes,
something to society to look at.
Yes,
it's never been done before.
They're always looking for victimhood. They want to stand. It's like, yes, I overcame this. It's like, oh, please. It's like, right now, it's like, I've got the world's smallest violin, and it's playing just for her.
There you go. Speaking of the smallest violin, and the violin is shrinking daily, CNN, with the authority in news, I forgot because I've been watching so long, like everyone else. The leader in news is no longer leading. What is the average viewership is 500,000, and in prime time, Fox is getting over 2 in some cases, 630,000.
Yeah,
I think reruns of Mr. Ed get 470,000.
The local newscast gets more viewers than CNN does. Actually, if CNN follows the trajectory they're on, and Carnivore Radio follows the trajectory we're on, we may surpass CNN.
And you know what could happen? Wait a second.
We already
we're not
CNN
Plus.
We're not
going to hire them, but we might have some of their noteworthy anchors begging us.
Yeah,
to be on the show, and we can't have that happen. We have integrity, don't we?
It is really ridiculous. They have fallen so far, and Fox News is the #1 cable network. Not just cable news network, cable network. Number 2 is still MSNBC.
I mean, I'd be interested if an upstart like Newsmax, I wonder if it's not nipping on CNN's heels. That
It
would be interesting.
It may be. And in fact, there is an upstart news network called News Nation that used to be WGN America. They've switched over to doing a lot more News Nation. They just hired Chris Cuomo.
Well, we all make mistakes.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, speaking of mistakes, um, I started watching several months ago Newsmax. They have a guy, Greg Kelly. He was just awesome. I think they were doing a lot of things right. They made a big mistake at 6 o'clock hiring Greta Van Susteren. Remember her from Fox?
I do.
Talk
I
about
do
last
remember
year's
her.
news. Yeah, please. That was a
There,
mistake.
there there is a lot of shakeups going on in news. And I think, honestly, that the CNN downfall is part of it. But OAN Network, One America Network, just lost their last cable carrier. So now they can only be seen on streaming services. CNN Plus obviously fell by the wayside, but CNN is now expecting massive layoffs. Even both Fox and MSNBC, actually, their ratings did drop just a bit, not a lot, but Fox is still getting over a million viewers more than MSNBC, who's their nearest competitor.
Now, with One America News, was that through ratings or politics, or was it a combination of both?
Um, OAN was dropped because of politics. They were canceled.
They were
Cable
small
network,
enough to be an easy victim.
yes, cable networks decided they didn't want to carry it anymore because of their conservative viewpoint. So now you can still, if you've got like an Apple TV or a Roku or device, you can get them through their app. But there's a question about how much longer they can afford to keep that going without the revenue coming from the cable networks.
I would say not long at all. How does
Yeah.
that sound? And concluding, I'll say on a he's deceased, but it's still in my for me I should say a positive note. Vin Scully, a true artist, and there's games I remember listening to him. Games I had no interest in, but he was such a great announcer that he made the game interesting, no matter who was playing. Obviously, he was a Dodgers, so whoever the Dodgers were playing, or if he was in the playoffs and Vince Scully was involved, he was a true artist, wasn't he, Dr. Lotkin?
He really was. And in fact, this morning, after the announcement of his passing, SNY TV, which is the home of the New York Mets, posted on their social media a clip of Vin Scully announcing the last inning of Game 6 of the 1986 World Series, where
Wow.
the ball went under Bill Buckner's legs. People forget Vin Scully was the guy who was announcing that. And
Wow.
what really set him apart, and a lot of people don't realize this, is that through most of his career, he was actually alone in the booth. He had no partner to talk to, no color commentary for him to toss it to. He did it all.
He was fantastic and kind of grew up with the guy. I thought, again, he could make the most boring game. It could be a blowout, and you'd still watch it. He would interject very interesting, relevant bits of information or information about the personal, not nothing, something about the person, where he came from, how he got into the pros, whatever it was. But it was interesting. It wasn't just a bunch of crap just to fill time.
Now, he was one of a kind, and he will be sorely missed.
Unlike CNN, correct?
Yes.
Well, Dr. Lopkin, that concludes another edition of Carnivore Radio. We can be obviously heard many places, and as the current trajectory, if it does follow through, we will have a little celebration as we top CNN. but we should probably try to aim higher, shouldn't we?
We really should. We need to aim higher than that. And of course, you can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and any platform that respects freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin, and thank our listeners. We'll be back next week.
We'll see you then.